The Vikings of Greenland were not a rumor or a footnote. They existed in many records until they suddenly didn't at all. No one ever mentions where they went. They were a recognized part of the Norse world. They followed European law. They answered to the church. They participated in long-distance trade. Their cities and farms were planned to last for generations. This was a society that documented births, marriages, and deaths, which makes what happens next difficult to explain. Because at some point, the Vikings of Greenland stop appearing anywhere. Nothing suggests a planned departure. When people leave a place intentionally, history usually notices. Someone writes about the decision. Someone mentions where they are going. Someone encounters them later. That does not happen here. There is no record of a mass departure. No description of ships leaving for good. No mention of Greenlanders resettling elsewhere. They do not show up in Iceland. They do not appear in Norway. They do not appear in any new Norse territory. As far as the historical record is concerned, they do not relocate. They simply stop existing. This is not a story that begins with collapse. For centuries, Viking Greenland continues to operate as expected. Cities are maintained. Churches remain active. Farms continue producing food year after year. Trade routes remain open. Walrus ivory, one of medieval Europe's most valuable resources, keeps moving east. Supplies continue arriving from the west. Nothing here suggests a society preparing to disappear. This is important because functioning societies usually leave trails. They leave decisions. They leave transitions. They leave records explaining change. Greenland leaves none, which raises a harder question. If nothing was visibly breaking, what caused everything to stop? Sometime in the 1300s, the Western Viking cities disappear. No attack is recorded. No disaster is described. No warning is sent. The cities simply fall out of history. When later explorers arrive, they find empty farms and abandoned buildings. The people are gone, and no one ever explains why. The Eastern Viking cities continue after this. Life appears normal. People marry. Church services continue. European visitors still arrive. This should have prevented total disappearance. Someone should have noticed something. The last confirmed event is not a tragedy. It is a wedding recorded between 1406 and 1410. Names are written down. Witnesses are listed. And after that, the Vikings of Greenland are never mentioned again. Not as survivors. Not as refugees. Not as a memory. They simply vanish from the world's awareness. Archaeology offers no clean ending. There are no burned cities, no mass graves, no signs of widespread violence. Some homes still contain valuable items. Some farms appear orderly when abandoned. This does not look like people fleeing in panic. It looks like a society that stops continuing. That is a very different kind of ending. Several explanations are often offered to make this disappearance feel manageable. Climate change is the most common. Conditions did worsen over time, and farming became more difficult. But those changes were slow, unfolding across generations. The Vikings had endured harsh climates before, in Greenland and elsewhere. They adapted in other regions. They did not vanish in other regions. Economic decline is another explanation. Trade weakened, especially as demand for walrus ivory declined. But economic decline usually leaves evidence of strain. It leaves letters, disputes, migrations, or visible attempts to adapt. Greenland leaves none. Conflict with local populations is also suggested. Yet there is no archaeological evidence of conquest, massacre, or sustained warfare. Each explanation explains pressure. None explain erasure. They tell us why life may have become harder. They do not explain why a society disappears without recording its own ending. Here is the problem historians cannot escape. If the Vikings left Greenland, where did they go? If they stayed and died out, why is there no trace of the last generation? If something sudden happened, why did no one write about it? A literate society disappears without recording its own ending. That is not normal. When Europeans later return to Greenland, they do not find answers. They find cities without citizens, churches without congregations, graves without living descendants. The Viking world in Greenland did not end with a moment history could recognize. It ended by slipping out of the record entirely. Most civilizations collapse loudly. They leave ruins that explain themselves. The Vikings of Greenland leave something more unsettling. Cities without endings. A society without a final chapter. A disappearance without relocation, record, or explanation. They did not walk away in a way history can see. They did not leave a note. They simply stop existing. And centuries later, we still do not know why. Share your theory in the comments. Subscribe for more mysteries.